Today we hear the words of Eqbal Ahmad on July 25, 1982, at a town hall meeting in New York City, talking about the then Israeli aggression in Lebanon.
This is the first time in my political life we are facing an oppressive power whose objectives towards its victims are not those of colonizing them, whose objectives towards their victims are not those of subjugating them or of merely conquering them. Their objectives are eliminating them, exterminating them, challenging their survival. And in that respect, I see no difference between Hitler's attitude towards the Jews and the Israeli attitude towards the Palestinians. So we live in times that are more barbarian than we really know by the sheer body count. For body counts never tell the whole story. Yes, the ancient cities of Sidon and Tyre and Nabatea are in ruins. Yes, perhaps 10,000 have been killed, or perhaps only 200 have been killed. Yes, the Israelis have carried on a blitzkrieg. Yes, they have been very careful not to kill civilians. Yes, they have been very careless about killing civilians. None of the debate matters. What matters is the objective, the goal, the actuality of what the Israelis want. And what they want, some of it has been said. I shall not repeat. Ilyas Khoury was very clear in pointing out that the Israeli goal in Lebanon is a goal that is relatively known and simple from the Roman times and the Byzantine times, through the British times, and now the American times. The Israeli goal in Lebanon is primarily twofold. One, it is a colonial goal, and two, it is a conquest goal. From every evidence that one sees of what Israel wants from Lebanon, from January 10th, 1919, which witnessed the publication of the first well-worked out map of the Zionist movement, one knows that the Israelis would like optimally to actually hold the territory, to extend it to Eretz Israel up to the Litani River. Beyond the Litani River, they would like essentially what has been known in imperial history in simple words as a protectorate. But they would like a particular kind of protectorate. The French wanted a protectorate in Morocco. They had it under the rulership of the Idrisi dynasty. They wanted a protectorate in Tunisia. They had it under the Bey, the Monsef Bey and his family. But this one wants a protectorate under the aegis of the Phalangist movement, whom the New York Times continually describes in violation of historic principles and principles of journalism, basic honest journalism. These bunch of crooks in Beirut are being described every day as the Christians. It's an insult to Christianity. For those of you who have anything to do with the church, it is the greatest single abomination and insult to Christ himself to have the Phalangists described as Christians. You heard a Marxist and a Christian just now from Lebanon, Ilyas Khouri. You heard a Jew right here today in Ilyas Emal. But Begin is not a Jew, in my point of view. For a Jew that considers that killing women and children, and there have been those words spoken to in the last 3 months, killing women and children is mitzvah, is not a Jew. He's an abomination of a Jew. And if Bashir Gemayel and Pierre Gemayel and his phalangists are the Christians, then let us face it, Adolf Hitler and Mussolini were cast in the image of Christ himself. For what the newspapers are not pointing out is the simple reality. And the simple reality is that today in the world there is only one direct descendant of Hitler's and Mussolini's fascist movement that is now seeking power and is close to getting it through the barrels of Israeli guns. And that is the Phalangist movement. It was founded in 1936. Modeled entirely on the German and the Italian fascist movements. And it is them that the Israelis are somehow identified with. And it is them with whom Israeli identification is justified by the leaders of the Zionist movement, who also call themselves the leaders of the Jewish community in America today. So, that's a barbarian time. Their goal in Lebanon is that of creating, in the literal sense of the word, in the historic sense of the word, in creating a fascist protectorate in Lebanon. After taking what chunk of territory they can conceivably absorb, which is the territory that roughly at the moment is equivalent of what Haddad holds and a little more. Second, the Israeli goal towards the Palestinians is very different from that towards the Lebanese. The Israeli objective towards the Palestinians is stated, is the elimination of the Palestinians living in Lebanon, whose numbers nobody exactly knows, but are estimated to be between 500 to 600,000 people. Sharon would like to, in a stated fashion, drive these people out from Lebanon, and that is also, of course, the commitment of the Phalangists. Drive them out or bury them under. Drive them out of that land, those refugees, or bury them under that land. Driving out, where shall they go? They come from Galilee, as Leah was pointing out. Majority of them. Where are they going to go? Well, to Palestine, says Sharon. Where is Palestine? Sharon has created a new geography, not only a new history. Palestine is Jordan. But what happens if they don't go, or Jordan closes its borders? Well, what happens when one solution doesn't work? You find the second. And what happens when the second solution doesn't work? You find the third. That is what Hannah Arendt, the great Jewish scholar, discussing Nazi history, described as the banality of evil. The Nazis never wanted to kill the Jews. They only wanted to get rid of them. In the first stages, their idea of getting rid of them was to send them away from Germany. And the Zionist organ movement, by the way, cooperated rather actively with the Nazis in that stage. to send them to Palestine. When transfer didn't work, when it turned out there were too many and there was too little places to go to, and there were too many difficulties in getting to Palestine, the next solution was concentration. When transfer doesn't work, concentration is tried. When concentration proved very expensive, it was extermination physically. What I am trying to say to you, my friends, comrades, brothers and sisters, is that what we are facing with Israel is a two-headed monster. It's both an imperial monster, a colonialist monster, but it is also an exterminist state. What is the United States doing in it? Well, the United States, to be very brief about it, Professor Richard Falk will be talking about it this evening. They have had for the last 10 years two choices in the Middle East. One was to try to work out a peace that will leave a degree of American influence in the area, but an influence that they will have to share with the European countries and with the Soviet Union. And the other alternative was to somehow seek to put everybody else out of the Middle East and create out of it an area of unilateral American dominance. And there was no way to achieve that, they felt, except perhaps to do it with Israel. And it is for this reason that beginning in 1968, the rearmament of Israel began at a scale that the world has never witnessed. From 1969 to 1975, Israel received 32 times the amount of weaponry that it had received in the previous 22 years. Between 1975 and 1981, it has received twice the amount that it received in the previous 8-year period. Israel is viewed as a kind of a Sparta in the service of Rome. What's the objective of it? The objective is, its targets are not merely the Arabs. Its targets are not only the Russians. Its target are its European allies. The United States is losing its economic and its strategic leverage over Western Europe and Japan. And in order to keep itself as the paramount power, it must acquire a new leverage, and that leverage it doesn't want to share with anyone except an ally whose power is totally derivative on the United States, and that is Israel.